What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a classic story. It's a hoot and a holler. Today I'm going to be talking about the worst weed that I've ever smoked. But before I dive into that, I do want to mention a couple things. First off, happy July 4th. Hope y'all are having a hoot and a holler. Stay safe today. If you're lighting off a firework, be sure to aim it at your friends in the chest or below, not the head, because that can hurt them more. So either way, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Drop a like if you do. And also, check out John Garcia's SoundCloud in the description below. Big shout out to him. He helped me out when I uploaded the PayPal video. And just big supporter. So go show him some love. Let him know I sent you. Check out his stuff. Maybe you'll like it. But either way, let's get into it. So the worst weed I've ever smoked. Now, this happened, I want to say it was over a year ago. This was like maybe 14 months ago. This was like towards the summer of 2016. It was around like May. And I was over at my boy Chris's house. And, Chris wasn't the one who supplied the bad weed. Chris and his older brother always had really, really good weed. They were always who I picked up from, his older brother in particular. And they just had great stuff. However, there's this other guy who we're going to call Neil. And Neil was a longtime friend of Chris's. I'd known Neil for a little bit as well, but not nearly as long as Chris did. And he would always come over with like outside weed is what we like to call it. And he would always pick up off like random other people instead of Chris's older brother and then bring it over to smoke. And Chris's older brother would always joke with him like, "You're getting that shit pack, man. You got to pick up from me. What you doing over here? You can't come here no more." Like he wasn't serious, but either way, so he was also notorious, at least among me and Chris, for having some shit weed. Like, he would occasionally bring through some alright weed, but for the most part, we didn't know who he was picking up from, but he was just getting some bonk. So on this particular day, he comes through, and he's just got this smirk on his face. And me and Chris knew immediately. Like, we already had our bud. We had a couple grams. And he was coming over to match. He comes over, and he's just got this sly little look on his face. I'm just like, this man's got some dookie weed today. I just knew it. And we go and sit in Chris's room, which was like our rolling spot. We'd always roll up in there and then go smoke on his back deck or in his garage. And Neil is sitting there, and he's like, "All right, guys, I got some bud that I think y'all need to see." And I'm like, "Well, what kind of bud? What's it looking like?" And he's like, "It's not good." And he just starts laughing. Like, he's just like, "It's not fucking good, man." And I'm just like, "Oh, no." And Chris is like, "What did you do, Neil?" And Neil's like, "I went and picked up off this dude that I kind of knew, and I got it really cheap, but I regret buying it wholeheartedly." He said he paid like $20, and I think he got like 2.5 grams or some shit. So I was like, all right, this isn't gonna end very well at all. So he busts out this little baggie, and at first I didn't realize that there was weed in there. Like, he's holding it up, and he kind of tosses it over to Chris, and Chris is like right next to me, so I'm looking at Chris as he's holding it, and Chris just goes, "Oh my God," and he starts laughing. He's just like, "Jesus fuck." And I look at this, and it took me a moment to process what I was witnessing. This bud, it looked like, God, I don't even know how to put it. It looked like you just took a bunch of blades of grass and like spray painted them like a dark green, almost like fucking black, and just chopped it up into a bunch of shake and like put it in a bag. Except it wasn't shake. Like, I don't know if the trim job was just horrible and it was like dead leaves or what was going on, but it just looked like just a pile of shit. It looked like I took an industrial fan, and in between the blades, I just like duct taped some bud to it and just sent it flying. Like, I don't know what was going on here, but it was not good. So I look up at Neil, and I'm just like, what the, like, why would you even bring this here? And Chris was like, "I feel pretty fucking disrespected that you just brought this weed to me right now and expect me to smoke this." And Neil was like, "Yeah, I haven't smoked any of it yet, but it looks like it's not going to go so well." And I was just sitting there, and I'm just like, my God. I was like, "Do you know what strain this is?" And he was like, "I don't fucking know, dude." He said like OG or some shit, but at this point, I don't even know if it's weed. So I was geeked. So we open up the little baggie it's in, and Chris hands it over to me, and he's like, "Smell this shit." And I put it up to my nose, and it didn't smell like weed. It had a scent. Like, it smelled like, I don't even know how to put it. It smelled like a very faint fertilizer, almost. Like, very, very faint. Like, I almost got no smell from it except for the fertilizer. Like if you had that weed out of the bag just in your pocket, normally a cop would smell that. Like let's say you got pulled over and you just had that bud like sitting in your fucking your cup holder. Normally a cop would smell the bud if you had some decent weed not in a bag just sitting there, and he'd be like, "All right, get the fuck out. You're getting popped." But if you had this weed, he'd honestly probably just let you off scot-free no matter what crime you had. He'd be like, "I'm so sorry for this," and he wouldn't even smell it. Like this shit was bonk. I'm talking bad. Like when I think of Reggie, I just think of like weed that doesn't have a ton of color, weed that doesn't have a lot of, trichomes left on it, old weed, weed that just smokes kind of harsh. This was a level below Reggie. Like this set the new standard for Reggie for me. Like after I saw this, I was like, all right, I got to reevaluate. Like this is depressing. So, we're like, all right, we were kind of curious about trying this. Like we wanted to know just how shit this would smoke. Like it was weed. We held a flashlight up to it. We saw that it was definitely like a nug and some shake, but we just didn't know how this was going to end up. Like it I don't even know where to begin to try to explain this to you guys. So what we ended up doing was we didn't want to roll a whole blunt of this and waste this valuable Swisher paper on, this bunk. But Chris had a little bowl in his garage, so we finished rolling up our blunts of our good bud we had, and we ended up just smoking up Neil. We felt so bad, we were just like, dude, just hit our blunts. Like, we don't want you to suffer anymore. So we go out to the garage after we got our blunts rolled up. We're all kicking it in there, and Chris goes and grabs the bowl. And we decided that we were going to try this dookie weed before we smoked our blunts. We were like, all right, let's just smoke a bowl of this and just see what the fuck happens. Like, we very well could die from this. Like, we could really die right now. So, Chris passes me the bowl, and he's like, Nick, you want to do the honors? And I'm like, oh, God, dude. And I said yes, because I was like, sure, whatever, I'll just get it out of the way. I was kind of curious. Like, I did kind of want to smoke it just to see what was going on here. Like whenever you see weed that horrible, you're almost like, at least for me, I'm almost like interested in smoking it. Like I'm almost like, how shit is this? Like that's kind of how I was. So, I grab the bowl, I light it, I take a hit. Now let me tell you guys, I'm pretty sure I could have just packed a bowl of tobacco and it would have hit less rough. Like, this was bad. This was next level. I've never had bud hit this rough in my whole life. It was almost like, smoking paper clippings. Like, I can't even describe it. It's like I just ripped a page out of my notebook and just stuffed it in a bowl and lit that shit. And I immediately, I just put the bowl right down and just cough. I'm coughing a fucking lung up. All my internal organs are working their way up my throat and out of my body. And I kind of wish they did at that point because I wanted to be dead after that hit. And, they're looking at me. Neil's just got his hand on his head and he's just giving that look of like, I fucked up. Like he's just looking down. He's got his hand running through his hair and he's just like, oh God. And Chris is just laughing his ass off. He's just like, is it that bad, bro? And he sees the expression of just pure fucking disgust on my face. And I'm just like, this is the worst shit I've ever hit in my whole life. And Chris is just like, Neil, you really fucked up. It's like, you really fucked up. And Chris's older brother comes out. And Chris grabs the little, like, bit of weed that we had, not a little bit, like, just the chunk of Reggie we had, and it was like, he's telling his brother, he's like, come look at this shit. And his brother comes and looks at it, and he's like, where the fuck did y'all find this shit? And Chris kind of looks over to Neil, and he's just like, God damn it, Neil, why do you always fucking do this? All you gotta do is get your bud from me. That's all you gotta do. And, he was right. I mean, the guy was my main plug for a reason. He had really, really good weed. And Neil was just like, I'm sorry. I fucked up. I'm sorry. And Chris's older brother was like, I should beat your ass just for bringing this around. Like, this is fucked up. And Neil's just sitting there. So then, finally, I passed the bowl to Chris. I'm like, you need to try this. And he's like, oh, God. And Chris takes a hit. Same reaction. He's just coughing a lung up. He's dying. He's hating every moment of this. And we pass it to Neil. And I'm like, Neil, since you brought this, you have to kill this bowl. You have to. Like, there's no way in hell. You have to kill this. So Neil's like, fuck you guys. All right. I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm just watching him because I really wanted to see him kill this whole bowl. So he lights it, and I could tell he was trying his hardest to one-hit it. Like, he was really trying his hardest to kill it all in this one hit. He puts it down, and he just coughs a lung up. He took a fat hit. Like, I took a kind of tiny hit and still, like, died. He took a fat fucking hit, and his eyes were, like, watering as he was coughing. Like, he was not fucking with this. But it was pretty cashed, so he did his job. And, you know, we sat there, maybe like 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes. We were just kicking it, talking, laughing about this dookie weed. And I kid you not when I say that this weed genuinely gave me a headache. Like, most of the time, weed will kind of, if I have a headache, like, I'd smoke a blunt and I'd feel better, right? Like, it would help with the headache. It'd help me with any pain. It'd help me feel better. This weed was the opposite. This weed, it was like, I can't even explain it. My head just hurt. Like, it was bad. And, you know, I asked if anyone else had a headache. Chris was like, not really. I mean, maybe I will later. And Neil was like, nah. So I guess it was just me. But I had a fucking headache from this weed. Like, it was bad. And I was just sitting there, and it was just the most unenjoyable bud I'd ever smoked. And I was just like, all right, we need to light these blunts right now. Like, I need some good weed in me now. So we sparked up our blunts. We rolled up, I'm pretty sure we rolled up like 3 of them. I think we had like 2 half-gram blunts, then we rolled a gram blunt, nothing crazy. And we sparked the first 2 and put those in roto and saved the third for baseball, which, for those of you who don't know what that is, baseball is basically where if you're in a roto, you spark a blunt, you each take 1 hit and you hold it. And then you pass the blunt around, and you can't like breathe or exhale the hit until the blunt gets back to you. So in bigger rotos, it can get pretty intense. In a 3-man roto, it's not that bad. But in big rotos, I've done it in like a 6-man roto. That shit was spooky. That shit was spooky as hell. I thought I was suffocating that day. But anyways, we sparked up our good blunts. I smoked those. Headache was still kind of lingering. It slowly went away. I don't remember what kind of weed we had in those blunts, but it was good. It definitely helped. It helped out a lot. Shout out Chris's older brother for hooking it up on the good pack. But anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Also, don't forget to check out John Garcia's SoundCloud once again in the description below. Much love to him for helping me out. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.